All right, everyone, it's Ricky's Rockin' Reviews, and I'm really honored to have Ari holding on, the writer of Metaxysm, creature feature horror novel. So thanks for being on here. Liz,
Yes.
just kind of briefly summarize or give a little synopsis for the viewers here about your book.
Oh gosh. Yeah, I've always tried to do that without spoiling it.
Yeah.
It's a creature feature horror, like you said. Basically it's about scientists gone wrong. And they inadvertently create something that they have to stop, basically. Um and it's more I feel like it's more of like a character driven novel than I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the things I really liked. By the way, I have reviewed the book, so I'm gonna put like a little clip or link in the description for that review, so you guys can watch it. But that's one of my highlights for sure was that you took a lot of time with the characters in order for us to actually care about them when all the crazy stuff started going down. You're like, I don't want to say anymore.
Oh no, I can say more. Well, it so the yeah, the characters so this is my first book that I've published. I mean, I've written forever, but this is the first one I've published. And so I feel like a lot of the characters are just kind of born out of my own experiences, so that's probably why I put a lot of detail into them. So yeah.
Can you talk to us a little bit about how this book came into fruition, the story? I know in the back of the book, in your acknowledgments, you kind of talk about the National Novel Award that you won for that.
Yeah, well, it wasn't really a award. It's National Novel Writers Month. So if you're not aware of that, it's every November. Um, Writers, you don't have to be a professional author or anything like that, but if you have a love for writing or anything like that, in November, the challenge is to write 50,000 words in the 30 days.
Oh.
And I'm a very slow writer. I'm getting better. I'm getting a lot faster, but I'm typically a pretty slow writer. So the challenge has always been something that I've participated in for a long time, since I want to say like 2010. So it's been a while. So this particular book I came up with in 2021 for National Novel Writers Month. And I actually, as far as coming up with the plot for that, it's an interesting story because I heard a little bit of advice from another author that a good way to spur creativity is to take three stories that you really like and just take aspects of each one and just kind of mash them together. So when I was brainstorming this, I have an eclectic sense of taste. So I picked The Thing, and there's a show on Amazon Prime, which a lot of people haven't heard of it, but it's called Tales from the Loop. And if you've never heard of it, it's a good show. There's only one season, but it's a good show. And then Clue. So Clue, which as you said, when you got to that one chapter, probably was more manifest in that part, um, because it was when Clue was first released in the theaters. I guess different theaters showed different endings for the
Yeah.
movie, so that's kind of where that came in from. And plus, I love choose your own adventure, so I thought, why not?
Yeah.
And
Sorry,
yeah,
I just wanted to say that was a really cool idea because I I was not given any hint of that happening at all. So I was just totally not expecting it, and that was the best part.
well, I'm glad you liked it. It was kind of a risk because I know not everybody appreciates that, but yeah, I do. So
Yeah. I thought it was really cool. I really like getting to know Abby and her day to day at Soto Labs. I thought that was really it felt like when she was walking into the lab, it really felt like she was always doing that. And like it felt really lived in that lab. I felt really real to me. And I thought that was really cool. So can you talk about the lab and how you came up with that in your head?
Oh, certainly.
Like the
Well,
worm that they have to go through, that was so cool.
yeah, actually, that was inspired by Event Horizon. I don't know if you've ever seen that
Yeah.
movie, but I just had that. That's one of my favorite horror movies from back in the 90s. And just that corridor, I wanted to kind of create something a little ominous, but relatively harmless at the same time. So that's kind of where that came in. But ultimately, the way it was set up, so I'm a scientist by trade, and so I have a lot of experience with um, kind of just how labs are set up and all that stuff, and then some of that inner office drama. So Abby's her lab was inspired by a lab I had at a different company, where you had the entire lab space, and at the very end was your office. And it was a very nice area because it was yours. A lot of lab spaces are shared in like typical places, but this particular lab, it was like you had your own corridor basically. So you had your lab, nobody used it, and then you had your office. So it was all yours. And her computer was inspired by my computer that I had. Well, except my computer didn't talk to me, but it was basically cobbled together from pieces in like storage just to, you know, create a functioning
Yeah.
computer. But
Frankenstein.
yeah.
Yeah. Um, and I wanted to know who was the most difficult character for you to write? Like
Tyler.
we have Abby who's trying to get something done. We have Byron who's kind of in his own world and he knows the ins and outs of what he's doing. And we have Ben who I think he kind of maybe has a crush on Abby, right? Kind
A
of.
little. I mean, I think they're kind of like they have like this little sibling thing going on, kind of like a they care about each other, but they don't like they're not like in love with each other kind of thing. Like he's
Like
like looking out.
protective of each other.
Yeah, pretty much.
And then we have some other kind of mysterious characters there as well. So I wanted to know who is the most difficult to write.
Yeah, it was Tyler for sure. So Tyler, in my original draft of the book, he was just a straight douchebag. I'm sorry for cussing, but he was just a straight jerk. And the more I thought about it, I was like, less, he's got to be more relatable. I mean, maybe he does some like kind of creepy things, but he's got to be a person at the same time. And so I his whole character kind of morphed into what it is now, but it was like really difficult. I was stuck for a while because I was like, I don't know what to do with this guy. I know what I want to do with him, but I don't at the same time. So it's like, you know,
Yeah, he was very charming. When you first meet him, you're like, oh, this guy just, he just really likes Abby. And then when you get to know about him more and you see from his point of view and the stuff that he's doing, you're like, whoa, this guy's kind of like, he's got some issues.
yeah, he's a creep.
Yeah.
Yeah. But Abby, I hate to say that Abby is kind of like a reflection of me, but she kind of is, just because, again, this is my first book. So it's just like I'm just writing what I know, and I know myself best. And I feel like Abby really suffered a lot with imposter syndrome. So she was in this role. She didn't felt like she belonged there. She couldn't really come up with anything useful, or she didn't feel like she could come up with anything useful. And then she came up with a doozy. So yeah.
Yeah, and I thought you did a good job with kind of showing her mental gymnastics that she had to do when she was, when she had to like navigate all the different people she was talking to. Because at first she doesn't like have any interest in Tyler, and then eventually his charm starts kind of like, I guess, like not beating her down, but kind of like
just
coaxing her
coming
out of the
through.
shell. Yeah. And then at the same time, she has that stuff going on with Ben, and they start confiding in each other. And I thought that was really cool because um we all have that person at work that you confide in, and it just felt like it was really naturally evolving, and I just really appreciated that part of the book.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't originally have them like that either. It's kind of interesting how much my first draft has evolved into what it is now. I Byron was not going to play a big role originally, and now he's probably one of my favorite characters. um,
He's
I've
very
always,
matter of fact.
yeah, he is very matter of fact. And, honestly, that's a very scientific thing to be. Like, you're just very, just blunt, and when he was talking to Abby about the way of the lab, she's just astounded by what he's saying, but at the same time it's like, well, it is what it is, like.
Mhm. Yeah, and I don't know how much you want to talk about it, but can you talk a little bit about the metal panels, these mysterious items in the lab? I was like, what
Yeah,
is this stuff?
yeah, that was, I don't know, that just kind of came out of nowhere. I just thought about, like, so they're inventors, right? And as a scientist, I'm not an inventor per se. I'm a formulation develop scientist. So I was like, what kind of materials can I use for them to invent things? So then I was like, well, um, it just kind of came to me from there when I was thinking about the company, and, like, some of these companies do shady things. Well, maybe they're getting this material that they're using, but they're not telling them about where it's from or what it does. They have to figure it out and all that stuff. And so I don't know. I just kind of like my method in writing a lot of times is they call pantsing. And so I just start writing what just comes to mind.
Mhm.
Um, maybe with a couple beers. But yeah, and so that kind of came out, and I was like, well, that's kind of an intriguing thing. I'll just run with that. And so yeah, so that's what I did. And honestly, I didn't really think I would go anywhere further with that. I just thought, well, I'll just leave this little piece of intrigue in the book, and they're working on these panels and they come up with these rando things that are really random. And but now I guess I had a friend request that I write some sequels. So, okay, well, maybe that can be part of the sequel where, like, these things come from, and, you know,
Yeah, that was kind of my next
and
question. Like, how big is the scope of your story? Because there's so many things that are kind of left open to either to interpretation or left as like a mystery that you can kind of dive into later. For example, like Soto Labs, like what are they up to in the grand scheme of things? And then, like I said, like this mysterious metal, you don't know you don't know where they're getting it from. And then I don't want to spoil anything, but some of the other mysterious characters, like what were they up to? Because they were definitely up to something.
yeah.
And then this monster comes in kind of like uproots whatever they were working on. But yeah,
Well,
I don't want to spoil it, but
no, it's okay. Yeah, I mean, I guess we won't spoil it, but it's interesting you ask, because like I said, I never really thought about extending it beyond just this one book. It was going to be a standalone. But because I was having people ask about it, I was like, well, maybe I can come up with something. So now, since I kind of made it a little complicated because there's three endings to this book,
yeah.
now I've got three ideas of directions that I'm going to take. So um, typically, from when I talk to people, they say that they read all three endings. So it doesn't really matter, like, if I decide to write these three in full, hopefully soon. I mean, they can read three more books if they want, or just pick the ending they liked the best and go with that one. Um, but yeah, that's kind of, my thought is one of the endings is more apt to go further into the metal panels than the others. But yeah, I think they all have potential to being um, some kind of crazy story.
Definitely. But I also kind of wanted to ask, how did you, in your head, how did you design the monster? Because you get little snippets here and there until, the big shebang, the big brutal birth scene. And I just wanted to know how did you conceptualize the monster?
So, I've always been a fan of Lovecraftian things. And plus my other story that I used to mash together was The Thing. So I was like, originally when I was thinking The Thing, the first thing that came to my mind were like, of course, like tentacles and like crazy things coming out. I honestly, the prologue was the first chapter I wrote because I knew what I wanted this creature to look like. But again, my first draft was a little very vanilla, and the more I wrote, the more like detailed I got with like how he looked.
Mhm.
Um, I'm Even though this is a horror book, I'm not naturally inclined to be very disturbing or like write things that are really gross or disturbing. I mean, you'd be surprised to hear me say that. I had to pull that out of me to like write it.
Mhm.
And so the more I wrote like details of his character or the monster, I came up with all those other little details that came in, and then yeah, it's just ultimately ended up being this nasty thing.
Yeah. And did that come across? Of course, that came across in the artwork by Paul Adam, right? He did an
Yeah,
awesome job.
so the artwork was done by a friend of mine. We went to college together, and he normally does like game and comics. And so I just reached out to him one day and I was like, "Hey, do you think you might want to do a book cover?" And so yeah, he agreed to it, and I gave him a synopsis of what it was. And I described a bunch of different things about the book, but I also talked about the monster. And when he came back with, he had 9 conceptual designs. He really focused on the monster. So he had like 9 monster designs. And I was like, okay. And I really liked that one because it had movement to it. And it almost seemed, I want to say violating in a way too, because here you've got this human head with these tentacles kind of coming out. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So yeah, there's movement and it's like violating. And that's kind of the sorry. That's kind of the feel that gives me, I guess.
It's funny that you mentioned the comic book because I was kind of thinking this story would really translate well as a comic. It would look so cool.
Yeah, I guess it would. That's a good
Yeah.
point.
Yeah. Yeah, especially like with the lab, and then you can do a lot of things with like just the atmosphere and the way you want to draw and ink it and stuff like that. I think that would be really cool. But I mean, that kind of leads me into my next question. You have started your own publishing company, right? You have
Yeah.
Cliff Cave Books. I really like the design. I mean, I don't know if I could pick it up on here, but the little logo here is so cool. It's like little eyes in a cave, but it also kind of looks like a hood, like a mysterious little figure there.
Yeah, that was like random. And I did it in like Photoshop, and it originally was just the cave, but then I was like, I gotta put some eyes in there. And so I had made these like eyes, and I was like, that doesn't look right. So I went down with my eraser and like I erased a chunk of it, and I was like, wait, that looks right. Because it like gives them kind of a squinty look. So
Yeah, I'm trying to get it focused on there.
yeah, it looked good.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I started Cliff Cave Books in October, so right before I published that book. And the reason I did that is because I heard a lot of author advice that if you're gonna if you want to publish wide, it's best to get your own ISBN number. And when you do that, it's also best to have it underneath an LLC so that each ISBN is associated with the LLC. And so I started Cliff Cave Books, and it's just me. I don't have like a team or anything. But the name was inspired after a park that we have here in my area. And so there's actually a street that's called Cliff Cave Way or something like that. So every time I drive past it, I was like, hey.
That's cool. That's cool. Where I live, down the street, there's a road called Bat Cave Road. Because
Oh,
there it's like by a cavern, so it's pretty cool. So
yeah. Well, in this park here, it did used to be an old, so the cave part used to be an old winery that's still there's remnants of it still there from like the 1800s. It's not functioning now, but it is pretty cool. And then I mean the park was basically a cliff and a cave, and those were like the high points. So that's why it's called that. But a cave, what better thing for like creepy crawlies to come out of, right?
yeah. Do you have any aspirations to like work with other writers or bring someone or to like incorporate them into your Cliff Cave publishing?
Yeah, absolutely. I've actually had that conversation with a couple other people who have been also inspired to write. And I thought, my niece, she majored in creative like English. And she actually is the one that proofread my book for me. So
Mhm.
yeah, I would love to take people under my wing and help them with that. So I have a website. So
Yes, I'll be linking all that stuff in the description of your website
awesome.
and the book and the good reads to your book and all that.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah. I kind of wanted to also get into just like what you personally like to read. So, what are some of your favorite authors?
Oh gosh. I am very open as far as authors are concerned. I know what I don't like. And so if I read something by a particular author that I didn't like, I'll never pick up another one of their books. Unfortunately, I shouldn't do that, but that's just kind of how my brain works. But I'm actually very eclectic in my tastes. I like anywhere from like fantasy. I do like a lot of horror books, obviously. I mean, I'm writing them. Um, I've I don't know. I want to say some of the books that stand out to me. There's one that I read years ago that I loved it. It was called The Resurrectionist by E.B. Hudspeth. Um, I don't think he wrote anything else. I think it was his only book. Um, but it was fascinating. And so just a side plug, I do recommend that book for it's
Okay.
another kind of like horror book. But like horror light. I don't think it's too terrible, but it was really good. Um, and of course, I like Stephen King and Joe Hill, and but I'm really into indie authors right now. So I'm on NetGalley. Have you heard of NetGalley?
Yes, I'm on there too.
Are you?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
actually just got my first rejection.
Oh,
Because I've been reading a lot of horror and I think that they think that's like my only spiel. So I actually wanted to read like this romance that takes place in the afterlife and I got
oh.
denied. So I was like, rats. Oh well. Anyways,
That's a
sorry, what were you
bummer.
gonna say about NetGalley?
Oh, I was just gonna say, like I've been reading a lot of books on NetGalley, and there's another one that really stands out to me. And I can't for the life of me remember the author's name, but it was called Einhallow. I don't know if you saw that on NetGalley,
Um,
but it's
no.
kind of like a retelling of the Bride of Frankenstein. It's really
Oh,
good.
okay. Cool. So that's one of
So
your most current recollections of something cool to recommend to someone.
yeah, I think so. And then with the Resurrectionist, that one's been out for a while. There's actually two books called The Resurrectionist, and I've read both of them. But the first one by E.B. Hudspeth is the one that I recommend the most. The other one is by Alex something. I can't remember. I mean, it was okay, but nothing like E.B. Hudspeth's.
Yeah. And as a writer, do you find like that reading a lot helps you in in your creative process?
Actually, yes. And I think, and I hate to say this, there's good and bad to it because when I'm reading, I'm like, oh, I really like the way that they worded that. Some of the, you know, especially with the Einhallow, he used a lot of words that you don't typically use every day, but you know the meaning of, you just don't hear them all the time. So when you're reading it, it's like fresh and you're just like, oh, that's really, a neat way to put that kind of thing. But then there's other stories that you read where you're just like, I would never do that. Like, I like mental note, just never do that, you know. Um, but I do find that I get a lot more inspiration from movie watching, which isn't the same as reading, but it's all a story. So another bit of another comment that I got on my book was that I should turn it into a screenplay because of the detail that's in there is easily translatable to like a movie. And that's probably why, because I watch a lot of movies. So
Yeah, I got the same feeling too. And when I read, I also tend to like, I think of everything really cinematically.
yeah,
That's what I just visualize when I read. So I totally understand what you're saying. I also really like how film, you can incorporate a feeling, or you can inject a feeling into film with like enhancements like music and
yeah,
lighting and all that stuff. So really cool.
definitely. And I could definitely hear some like cool soundtrack for that,
Yeah.
especially the first chapter,
Which chapter?
the prologue.
Oh, the prologue. Oh, yeah, yeah. That would be so cool. Yeah, that would be awesome. I also kind of wanted to ask you if you had a preference when it came to like holding a physical book when you read or an e-reader. Like, how do you do your reading?
So I do a lot of my reading because, well, let me just back up. So I am at war with myself because I hate clutter, but I love physical books. So the e-reader is nice because I can like amass a ton of books without having the clutter, but it's just not the same, like just holding that book. So if there's a book that I really like, I want to get the physical copy of it, even if I just read it on the e-reader or whatever. I want that physical copy because I am one of those people that likes to write in them and,
Oh,
highlight and take notes and tag things and whatnot. So,
hmm. Yeah, I totally see that. As you can see, I have a collection behind me, and that's not even half of it. So
oh yeah, I can
there's some,
imagine.
yeah, there's just something about holding them. It just feels so good. It makes me feel better about what I am and what I'm doing in life
Yeah.
to have them.
And your
But
setup back there looks a lot like mine, except replace books with movies. So we've got like little statues in there and movies and stuff.
oh man. Okay, so I have my man cave in the adjacent garage. I have a level on top of the garage, and I keep all my movie stuff in there. I have all my 4Ks and everything. I
Oh,
love
nice.
collecting movies. Oh yeah. But I've been reading a lot more recently, so there's not enough hours in the day. I either have to
Oh, I
read a book
know.
or I have to watch a movie. You have to decide.
Yeah. I know it's crazy. Well, and I'm a gamer too, so I don't game a lot. I mean, okay, I'm a gamer, but not like a hardcore gamer. So when I when a title of mine comes out, like a title that I really like to play, I'm like all in. So right now, the Final Fantasy is coming out,
Oh
and
yeah.
so I will probably be very dedicated to that for like a month.
That's
So
awesome. Yeah.
yeah.
I just play Fortnite. I
Oh, did
know.
you?
Yeah, that's the only game I really play because I know I'm getting older. I don't know. It's just like I've just dedicated to that game because that's what I've learned and that's what I've been playing.
Yeah, and that's kind of how I mean, I used to play all the games. I was a World of Warcraft and Neverwinter, EverQuest, I did all the games, all the console games. And now that I'm getting older, I'm like, I'm just gonna stick with Final Fantasy. It only comes out once every couple of years, and then I'm just gonna like, dedicate my time to that. So
Yeah, I know what that's like. I have a few more minutes, so I just want to ask you a couple more questions. Um, so I see on your Instagram you have like a bunch of endeavors. You have you're always drawing and making soap. And so how do you balance your regular day to day with the creative outlets that you need?
Um, that's a great question. I feel like I have a little bit of undiagnosed ADHD. Um, but I've made soap for years. I told you earlier I was a formulation chemist, and that's kind of where that comes in. So, I've been doing that since probably 2005. And I don't know, I just and I've always done art too. I took art classes. It was my first major before I went into science. Um, and with the two opposite sides of the coin, you got science and art. They usually don't mix. And you know, my brain was at war with itself again. And so now it's just I do science as a job and art as a hobby. I was trying to do something more with the art at one point, but it didn't really go anywhere because I feel like one of the issues that I run into is that I do have a lot of interests and endeavors is that I can't sit down and like focus enough on one to become like a master at it. Um, so I feel like with soap making, well, soap making I'm pretty good at, but like art making and you know, I did sculpture for a while, stuff like that. I can't um become a master at it. Now, writing, I'm very passionate about right now. I've written books since I was like 5. I used to write books or write little stories, and my sister and I would act them out.
Wow,
Um,
that's awesome.
and we still have the little movies. They're so funny, but yeah, so I have always written, but now I'm really honing in on it. And I want to be like, I want to chisel this craft for sure. Cause I feel like writing is the artistic version of it's like the written artistic version of painting, if that makes sense. So like I can describe things better than I can paint it. So I guess if that makes sense.
I definitely know what you're talking about. And kind of like, even though the painting is static, everyone sees something different, and it's the same way with books. You know, when I'm reading something, I'm seeing something different than what someone else would read.
Yeah. Oh, and as far as balancing it goes, I'm sorry, I didn't really answer your question.
It's okay.
Um, I just fortunately I'm in a position where I'm working at home, so it's really nice that I can save a lot of that time with the commute, so I don't have to do that. And I can on lunch breaks I write. I set up soap stuff on lunch breaks or like right after work or like early in the morning right before I start work. My husband works nights, so he sleeps during the day. So while he's sleeping on the weekends, I'll like do stuff in my soap room or whatever. So that way I'm not bothering him. But
Oh,
yeah, that's just kind of how I balance it. Plus, I don't have any friends. So I'm just
oh,
kidding. No,
I
I
I
have
know what
friends.
that's like. I know what that's like. But I'm jealous. I wish I could work from home. I would be able to get so much done as far as my reading and then practicing my writing because, you know, I want to write a book, but like you said, it's very hard to focus. And
Yeah, it can be.
like I said, I have a regular job and everything, so it's tough, but I'm determined to do it. That's why I want to talk to authors like you, and I want to read cool books like the ones that you're writing, so I can get like inspiration and pointers and stuff like that. So,
Yeah, and you can absolutely stay in touch with me. I mean, I will bestow whatever wisdom I have,
oh,
which
this
may
is
not be much, but you know.
no, everything you've been saying is definitely gold. I wanted to kind of ask what is your writing setup like? I know you kind of mentioned that you know you have maybe a few beers as you're writing, but is there anything else that you need by your side? Maybe like your cats or like how does that go?
Um, I feel like the best time that I write is actually sitting in bed. So I have my laptop and I'm on my laptop right now. Um, I have a little red light machine on my nightstand. And my cats usually, if I'm laying in bed, they're usually all at the foot of the bed. Um, Yeah, I'm very like non-traditional about that. When I wrote Metaxysm, I was very glued to my desk in my office. And that was before I got this work from home job. So now that I'm working from home, it's become more of a work area than it has become like a, you know, kind of a leisure type thing. So I took it somewhere else and I just feel more comfortable just sitting in bed and that way I can, you know, I don't know.
It's
That's
just
how I've been doing
relaxed.
it. Yeah, it's relaxed. And like, yeah, I'll have beer occasionally. Like if I really need that inspiration, I'll drink a beer. Um, but usually it's tea.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah. I couldn't personally write in bed, but I just need something firm. So I do like the desk, but it's cool how everyone has a different process.
Yeah. Yeah, and
Um,
my desk is nice. It's a standing desk too, but again, when you start working at it regularly, you start to associate it with like your job. So then it's kind of
oh
like,
yeah, totally. I totally see that. Yeah. And then just lastly, I know you kind of mentioned it. Behind you, you have something. Did you want to, is that too early to share that?
no, not at all. Actually, I need to push myself. So I'm writing a novella. So it's not, I imagine it's going to be maybe around anywhere from like 75 to 100 pages, maybe a little bit less. I'm not sure. But it's, I don't know if you can read the title, but it's called Hillbilly Vamp.
Oh, that's gonna be awesome.
So it's going to be more of a horror comedy. So yeah, I'm really excited about it. I know I started working on it I think late November, and I was really booking on it in December, and then I got stuck, kind of like I did with Tyler. And I was like, gosh, I gotta figure this out. And I was like, it's just not funny. And I just gotta inject more humor into this thing, and I don't know how. And then I totally switched perspectives, and so I had to go back and change it. So it's kind of more from the point of view of the main vampire, the hillbilly vampire. So
Oh
um
man, that
it should
sounds
be fun.
awesome.
My
Yeah.
husband, he loves that cover too because he grew up in a small town, literally 600 people. I think his high school graduating class was 20 people. And so he's been giving me a lot of cool, like neat little one-liners that a lot of these country folks say, and stuff like that. And I've experienced a little bit of it too, because when we first got married, we lived in a small town, and yeah, it's fun. I'm excited about it.
Oh, so am I. Well, thank you so much for being on the channel. We have, I think, 1 minute left. Zoom is telling me. So did you want to let people know where they can find you?
Sure. I have a website, cliffcavebooks.com. I also have a soap site. It's lhsoaps.com. And I'm on Instagram, RE Holding, and YouTube. I have a YouTube channel that does soap and books and stuff, and that's RE Holding as well. So yeah.
Oh, thank you so much, Liz, for stopping by. And can't wait to talk to you soon about the Hillbilly Vamp.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye,
Thank
guys.
you. Bye-bye.